Hey Matt, so I'm just gonna make this video to explain what I was thinking with the Reaper paradox, right? So I did a few things already, but I'm gonna start them over so that you can kind of see the logical process and you can see like the actual inherent contradiction, what two assumptions we make lead to that. All right, so. Oh my god, this board's so annoying. Alright, so let's just start out with the setup so that we're on the same page, right? So basically we're saying, okay, so there's like this Grim Reaper, right? And he's like a chill dude. And what he does is he kills you whenever there is, or at least like he does the action of killing you whenever there is like half of the time left from the end going to the beginning. So what half time from end to beginning, right? So let's just say for the sake of this example, let's say our time scale is from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., right? So then he's gonna do a kill at 3:30. He's gonna do another one at 3:15, another one at 3:07.5, and so on and so forth, basically always subdividing down towards 3 a.m., right? So then, so then it raises the question, right? When do you die? Oh crap. At what time do you die, right? And this is an interesting question because by the time 3:30 hits, you're definitely dead because you would have been killed at 3:15. But then by the time 3:15 hits, you're already, dead as a doorknob because of 3:07. So we basically have, we have to say, okay, does the Grim Reaper kill you or not? Because if you can never point to the first time, does the time not exist? But then, of course, if you're still alive at 3:30, then, or at 3:18, then you're definitely going to die at 3:30. So let's just go over it, right? So the first thing I did, actually, I took a picture to make sure that I had my thoughts out clearly. And I'm going to refer to that picture. Let's see. Okay, right? So we have basically two assumptions that we make. Aside from, let's just say, this is assumption 0, just the setup. So let's make a Fitch-style proof logic thing just to keep ourselves organized. Let's go over our assumptions. So one of the assumptions we make, let me see how I phrase this, is that that we can basically have this sort of infinite number of subdivisions, right? Because there's two assumptions. There's that we can have an infinite number of subdivisions, and that this it takes 0 time to do the kill, right? But really what this ends up being is just that there is a discrete time, because if we have an infinite number of subdivisions, right, that means that there will never be a floor for how long a time can be. You can always subdivide time again and again and again. So we make an assumption that there's no base unit of time, right? And this can also apply to the idea of an instant event, because you can't have an instant event if everything has to be at least a base unit of time. So that's one of our assumptions. Base time. Right? And really that's it, right? That's the only assumption that we make here. We have our setup, we have this assumption that base time is equal to 0, let's say. So there's no base time, right? So then what do we got to do? We want to prove that, let's go first to prove that there is no time when the Grim Reaper kills you, right? How can we prove that? Well, what we can do is we can say, okay, let's assume that there is a base time, and let's just call it A, right? So A, this is the time when the Grim Reaper kills you, right? Because if he does kill you, right, then it has to happen at a time. Or does it? Let's put an asterisk there. So this is the time when the Grim Reaper kills you, right? Okay, well, let's go forward, right? So this is a time. So what we can do, right, is that we can just divide our little a by 2 to get d. And this is just like, and we know from here that not only is D less than A, because, just like fact of, I guess, like division, like D is obviously going to be less than A, but we also know that, so I'm just going to write like division fact. And this is like, we're like assigning it or something. But we also know that D is less than A. Oh yeah, so D is, wait, let me check my notes. And we also know that D is like sort of like a valid time to kill, right? Because all times to kill are of the form like the total amount of time and then like half of what is left, right? So I can always take a certain time and divide it by 2 to get another valid time. So D, we know, is a valid time. So this means that really our assumption was false. We can't, because we assumed that there was a time, this was the minimum time when the Grim Reaper kills you, and we just derived that there's another time that is smaller that the Grim Reaper could kill you. So really, this assumption will just always be false. There will always be another time. So what we conclude here is that really this sort of A doesn't exist, or that there does not exist a time such that, a time called X, such that, that the Grim Reaper kills you. But, okay, so then that means that you're alive, right? That the Grim Reaper never kills you throughout this time. Cool. But let's make another assumption, right? Let's just say that the Grim Reaper doesn't kill you and that it's 3:18. So let's just like assume that you're not dead, right? So not A. There isn't a time when the Grim Reaper kills you. And let's assume that the time is equal to 3:18, right? We already talking about this, but I want to formalize it a bit more. So when we say that this time happens, like, we know that 3:30 is a valid killing time. Like, this is just a fact. Because it's of the form, of course, it's like the one right here. It's the final killing time that you can do. If he divides the amount of time left by 2, this is one of those times. So we know that 3:30 is valid killing time. So then we know that by the time 4 comes along, you're going to be killed, right? There will be a time when you die, right? Our time A will happen, and this time is going to be 3:30. So we have sort of actually, I don't even have to assume this. We have a contradiction here, right? Because when we assume that a time exists, right, then we get that a time can't. But then we know that when this time that will eventually arrive is 3:18 does happen, then we know that you're going to reach a point, like at 3:30, when you will die. So a time exists and a time doesn't exist when the Grim Reaper will kill you, right? So this entire thing, we have like A and not A. And this is just like a big contradiction, right? So if it's a contradiction, it means that our axioms, we assume 2 things that were mutually contradictory. So let's go back. What did we assume was mutually contradictory? Well, I think that there's like kind of 3 base assumptions here. Assumption number 1 is that like a base time exists, right? Or that doesn't exist. That was one of our assumptions. We're saying basically that an event can happen instantly, which allows us to subdivide this time as many times as we want, right? So we are saying, yeah, base time doesn't exist. So this is one of our assumptions. Our second assumption is that these are really the 2 kind of, I think, key assumptions, that the Grim Reaper has to kill you at a time. Reaper kills at a time. And I think this is kind of weird because, like, you can if you say that the Grim Reaper just has to kill you within like a length of time, then you can definitely have this be like contradictory. I can give you like a delta or something and say, okay, the Grim Reaper is going to kill you between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. And I just know that that's true. I know that the real time, the first strike, right, the first time that he goes out there will be between those 2. In fact, I know it's in between 3:30 and 3, 3:15 and 3, 3:07.5 and 3. I know I can give you a range, basically, that goes as small as you want, from 3 to an arbitrarily small thing. and just basically say from there, okay, like the Grim Reaper is going to kill you in this like interval, but I can't give you the exact time that this interval happens. And calculus would say, okay, just take the limit, right? The limit in this case would be 3 a.m. But the Reaper can't kill you at 3 a.m., right? Like at 3 a.m. is like the second before, the instant before this whole killing process starts. So if you assume that calculus is true, then you're kind of like, you're basically rejecting this like base time assumption, right? You're saying this is false, and this, you're saying, you're affirming the base time rejection. You're saying this is true, and that the Grim Reaper kills at a time is false, right? Which I guess is mathematically useful, but in terms of reality, I don't know. But there's like this is the inherent contradiction in this problem, that you cannot have a base time. And well, let's go on the other one. Let's say that the Grim Reaper does kill at a time. That means that we have to reject this thing that a base time doesn't exist. Because if a base time did exist, then this works fine. If we say that the base time is equal to like, I don't know, t, right? Then we know what the smallest sub interval has to be. If this is like the fraction that we have left, and this is the length of our subinterval of our time or base time unit t, if we were to divide this in two, then it would mean that this interval is like shorter than our base time interval, and that just can't be true. So we know that this has to be like the first kill or something like that. So yeah, this is, I guess, like the Grim Reaper problem. I don't know. I don't think there's a good way to solve this. Personally, I believe that a base time does exist. So I would reject this assertion and say, yeah, base time, like I don't know, like Planck time or something like that. But calculus rejects this second one all the time. So either calculus is wrong or physics is wrong. I don't know. Or maybe I'm missing something entirely. But this is like my understanding of the argument. So this video is already like 12 minutes. So yeah. Let me know what you think, Matt.